All right, fans. We're back here with the follow-up, the much anticipated follow-up episode from the cliffhanger that we left you on last week. Where we left you, I really thought we would have had some fan mail after that whole walkthrough of our first of 3 days in historic Virginia. Maybe there's an issue with the deleting the stuff that autofills, I don't know. Just remember, leave it in there. But yeah, so I don't know if you remember where we left off. We had just finished touring Sherwood Forest with our buddy Tim Coyne, and that was the end of our first day. We were waiting our fourth attendee to arrive, and he arrived that evening. What else did I know, re-listening to it, I found it funny that John and I were talking about how this guy, Tim, talked too much and talked about everything under the sun and couldn't stay on point, when the whole episode was pretty much that. And I think all of our listeners were probably saying the same thing about us doing a two-part total, almost 3 hour long two-part episode on 3 days of vacation that some might find a bit uneventful, but I thought that was kind of funny, and that's it. So where we left you off, we're going to pick right up on Saturday morning. We're heading down to the beginning of the official historic triangle of Virginia. So we're done with the plus portion of it, and this is the tourist trap that they call the historic triangle of Virginia. And you guys I'll let you guys, get to your own opinion here, but I would say it left a bit to be desired on our end. So hope we don't leave a bit to be desired on this episode. So yeah, enjoy.
And so then we had the core group at that point, so we were 4, and then we woke up Saturday morning, and that's when we hit the road and got into what we didn't know what. We didn't even know that the Jamestown, which, as Matt said earlier, is the oldest, was the first permanent English settlement, discovered in 1607. It was founded in 1607. We didn't even know. Apparently there's 2 of them. And the only distinction that the National Park Service and this private entity that runs this outfit called the Jamestown Settlement is one Jamestown with and without an E.
At the end, yes.
At the end.
So the national park is Jamestown with an E, which is the island that they actually landed on. And then there's Jamestown Settlement, which is no E, and that's run by, what we later learned is run by the state, and it is a tourist trap. We picked the wrong one. We went to Jamestown with no E, walked in, slapped with a $20 entrance fee. I think I got $2 off for having an expired AAA membership card in my wallet. And yeah, so we got in, and they kind of take your money, and then they give you no direction on where to go. Sure. So there's a theater we went to see that they talked about, instantly, boom, slamming the slave trade situation here, which is kind of, they always have to bring it up, it seems like, but they brought that in because it was the first place that the slaves landed too, and the Portuguese brought them over, which we had to give a little bit of a whoopsie to Mr. R, who is Portuguese by descent. So had to give him a little tough love there, but laugh that off. And then you walk through, they said like go out the door and go to the left. So then we started going through, like they got, again, it's very touristy, like they're kind of trying to make history fun, which they do probably surprisingly a worse job than we do on the podcast of that, my opinion. They have like a little set up Indian village to like tour and look through. We went into this, I guess it was a longhouse. I mean, we learned about longhouses and wigwams in elementary school. I think it was a longhouse. And then we're just minding our own business. And then some woman walks up and she's just got a polo shirt on. I think she worked for Jamestown and for the company. And she just started spewing all these random facts. But like what we learned ended up being a common theme throughout this area is like there's this weird like hybrid like talking in present day and talking in like some kind of character from colonial times.
Past
so
tense,
like
present tense, but in that time period.
She's like talking to us and she's saying like, well, you'd be a gatherer, hunter, whatever. And like she's trying to tell us about like our role. I'm like, well, no, I work in construction. Like it was just like weird. And then she was talking about how they had a fire yesterday to keep down the mold. And if we didn't keep the mold down, and I'm thinking to myself like, is she talking like they actually did have a fire in there, or is she just kind of trying to say like, oh yeah,
like in the story, like put you back in the time period? Oh, you would have had a fire yesterday, and the men you would have just been coming back from a hunt, and the women in the longhouse would have been preparing for your arrival, and but it smelled like fire. There was definitely
it did smell like fire. So I guess they did. Like it was just like I didn't really want to get into it. It was just like a weird vibe from that because like she wasn't even dressed in character, which some people were. She wasn't. I don't even know if she worked there. It was weird. So we left there, walked down. They got some ships there and docked in there like that, or the ships that I guess had landed there. I think there was the Discovery and I don't know what the other one is, but these ships were way smaller than you would think. I guess they were built to size, and like the amount of people that were on these ships and the fact that they sailed across the ocean was pretty impressive, but they were closed because they were renovating them, so you couldn't even go on them, even though normally you could. And it was kind of funny seeing like the workers there trying to move the sails to like work on the ships, and they like didn't know what they were doing. That was kind of fun to watch for a little bit.
We were definitely getting like the vibes of like this was like was percolating this idea of them of places taking your money without them kind of giving you fair warning that not everything is open. Like I feel like not being able to go on the ships would have been a pretty core tenet of seeing the settlement. That was kind of just like this. That's kind of where it all started. It was just like, oh, you can go into this village, and then you get to the ships, and you hear construction in the background. So here we are talking to this lady, kind of in present tense, kind of in past tense, whatever. You're trying to get into the headspace of what it was like in 1607, and then you just hear this crane going off on the side, like dredging sand, or I don't know what, pulling out old concrete. And I said, oh wow, I feel like just taken right back. Oh, that the British brought that. I guess the English brought that one over. I guess that came over on the fourth ship, a full-size excavator.
Yeah, it was weird.
For that, I was like, "This is weird." We're kind of looking at each other like, "This is."
It's just touristy. So we're just trying to go through. It's a little bit of a loop. So like we go down there, and then we'll start walking up. There's a imitation fort there. That's where we meet character number 2 of the weekend.
We're walking up, and we see this man with a hoe, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like just to set the stage. It was like kind of hot. It was humid. It was very humid, even though we were on the water. Supposed to rain that day, so it was like humid and it was like hot. It was like kind of uncomfortable that day.
It was a little uncomfortable that day, but we're walking up to this fort, this replica fort, because as we said, this was not the original settlement, so this was all recreated. And we're walking up, and we see like kind of rows of not crops, but like the beginnings of what looks to be they're growing corn, they're growing, I don't know, soybeans, something. They're growing things, and they actually are planting. We walk up to our left. See, to our left, there's this gentleman with a hoe, and he's just churning dirt.
He's not doing anything. He's just looking busy.
Looking busy. We then kind of walk towards him. There's a post in front of him with signage about, like kind of the whole like, well, during the winter months you'd be planting crop, like a whole backstory on what would have been going on at the time. And he stops what he's doing, which was nothing, we're pretty sure.
Engages us. And engages us. We didn't want to engage anybody. We're not interested in like getting into the, because like at this point realizing like this is lame. Like it was already like we were already kind of like bummed out, and we didn't want to really. We kind of still wanted to go in and out. We had other stuff to do that day. We had another place to go, so we're like kind of making our way and like let's just see all this stuff. And he somehow engaged us. I don't know what happened, but he engaged us somehow. And
we would have been reading the sign, and we were all bantering, as Matt and I do, and everyone's kind of getting into it. So we would have been like reading something and just hypothesizing, thinking of this, that, or the other, what it would have been like. And he just stopped and turned. He's like, well, and then he started this whole like, are you talking in present? Are you talking back then? He started.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I think somebody might have said, what are you planting there? And he's like, oh, I'm planting tobacco. But, we don't have the seeds yet. We're still waiting for them to come in. And I'm thinking, is this carrot? Like, are you like just like, are you actually going to plant tobacco? Like, I'm guessing they don't plant tobacco on this property. They probably aren't allowed to or whatever, maybe. And that's just like that's the bit. Like, oh, yeah, it's supposed to be coming on the next shipment. But you didn't really know. Like, maybe he was going to be like, they were coming in the next
agriculture was going to send him something. But we just get talking to him, and it's a summer job. It's a summer job for the guy. I came very
I mean, this kid's definitely like in high school. I don't even like I don't think he had graduated high school yet. He's got braces on, also not part of the time period, but what are you gonna do? I think we said, oh, he's like, yeah, but we planted that a while, and he points over to there was a row of like other crops there, and he said what all was there, and one of the crops was corn. And you saw a little stalk there or whatever. And I said, well, you know what they say, the Dutch, I said, you know what they say, knee high by July. That's what it should be. And, didn't really get much of a response to that. So I said, yeah, well, that's a Pennsylvania Dutch thing to say, I guess. And then John said, well, the Pennsylvania Dutch weren't here yet. And this guy goes, I don't know about Pennsylvania, but the Dutch were certainly here. And then he goes on this tirade about how the Dutch were, involved in whatever,
New Holland and finding
pirating ships and whatnot.
Right.
And, kind of just schooled John a little bit, but really it was kind of uninvited. And we're just kind of like, okay, and it was just really bizarre.
This whole time you're leaving it, he's swinging this hoe around. He didn't just put it down in the ground. He kept holding the hoe that he was using, and he was like fiddling with it. Like at any moment he's gonna like swing it, or he's gonna like step on it. The thing's gonna hit him in the face, hit one of us. He was just like dangling with this like hoe, as like just like la di da di da. Oh yeah, and the Dutch were, and he's just like twirling this thing.
And he's talking to us. He's trying to give us like a history lesson, but like it wasn't anything of real substance. He was kind of using some buzzwords. Yeah, like he's like, oh, the British, we blah 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 habeas corpus, because that's how we're so related to the British. And we're like, what? And then just like, okay,
he said the whole revolution was summed up in Americans didn't have representation in Parliament because of habeas corpus, which. Yes, habeas corpus was a very important thing in Western civilization, but it wasn't. He just was throwing out Latin and hoping it stuck.
Yeah, like Patrick Henry wasn't saying, give me habeas corpus or give me death.
Yeah, I mean, habeas corpus, it was within it was under the umbrella of liberty and give me death, but yeah, habeas corpus was one of the things. So yeah.
It was just weird. It was like a buzzword. And then John and Mr. R like get out of there somehow. So then I'm like, all right, I'm like trying, you're in a situation where this guy's just like, what we came to gather later is like, definitely like this kid's boss is like, if you're not talking to anybody, you got a hoe in the field, but
you got to look the part.
Yeah. But if you're talking to people, you don't have to. So this guy's like, oh, it was hot. So this guy's like, okay, I don't have to, let's keep talking to these guys. So he keeps talking, and I'm like, all right, man. And then, Mr. R asked him, like, oh, so how many seeds do you plant in each one of these little holes that you dug here? And he goes, I'm not sure. Maybe 1, maybe 3. I'm not really sure. And it's like, he didn't really know.
tobacco seeds are so small. It's like tiny. You had a vial of them.
Yeah, it's like you definitely just throw, but whatever, So then John and Mr. R walk away, and then it's me and Mr. W, and we're stuck there. And I'm like, all right. So I finally get away. I'm like, all right, man, stay cool, and we leave. And then he like brings me back in, and he's like, actually, if I were to stay cool, if I were working, in that time period, I wouldn't be wearing any pants. I was like, what? So he started explaining, like, yeah, my shirt's very long, and if when I put it on this morning, it came down to my knees. So if what people would do is when they worked the fields, they would take their pants off and they would wear just their shirt that would cover them down to their knees. And I would take this off. So then he started taking off his shirt, and I'm like, oh my God, is this guy going to take off his pants? I don't understand. I didn't ask for this. And me and Mr. W are like, what is going on? And then he takes his shirt off. I'm like, all right, man. And like, I'm still like trying to walk away. And then he starts explaining how like you may think that white is what doctors wear, but white is what the laborers would wear back in the day because it was cheaper to make, and the poorer people would wear white. But doctors and surgeons, now doctors went to medical school, but surgeons didn't go to medical school. Surgery was considered a trade. So the doctors would diagnose and the surgeons would do the surgery, but the surgeons always thought that the doctors didn't know what they were talking about and I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, okay, interesting. Wow. And,
mind you, we had a musket firing at noon sharp, like minutes away from them doing a musket presentation.
Yeah, so
I had to get out of there.
So I finally like got out. It was just funny, man. It was like that kid was a trip, man. And so then we toured the fort. They had a musket demonstration, and then we got the hell out of there. But the thing that the real bummer and the real thing, like if you are going to go to Jamestown, if anyone on the call is going to go to Jamestown, granted, I didn't do any preparation. I probably should have known this, but as we were leaving, we start walking into this building. They have a very nice building, and that was one of the complaints we had. Is like, okay, it's $20 to get in. They have a very nice visitor center, very nice big building, but it's like, what's the $20? Like, but then they have nothing outside, and the ships were. And I'm like, oh, yeah, they're spending all their money on this building they don't need. But then we're walking, as we're leaving, we realize there's like this whole museum in there that we missed because we got no direct. There was no like tour starts here, like museums here. Like there was no sign. We didn't know what we were doing. So we ended up having to like basically skip the museum because we wasted all of our time talking to Mr. Tobacco back there when we could have been like actually looking at something that may have been more interesting.
Yeah. As we were walking, there was a timeline of basically the first 100 years of English settlement in Virginia. And I think the museum, we don't know, we didn't go in, but like would be chronicling that first. Like, why did they go to Virginia? Why were they trying to make money? How was how was it all set up? And it was we got in a whole backstory. But yeah, we watched that movie. It skipped it. And they just didn't point us. Usually, I feel like when you go to these, like, they have a very clear. You go in, you watch a 5 to 10 minute film, which they had, and then they point you down. Then they would point you to go through this museum now. It should take you half an hour, give you kind of a timeline. It should be 30 to 45 minutes. Walk through it so you have a background, and then you're not going to just be talking to some kid with a hoe about nonsense for 30 minutes. So
yeah. So we missed that, and we're like, all right, because like, and then so that's whatever. So that was it for Jamestown, really. I mean, we didn't.
They had all 50 flags outside. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. We did spend a lot of time at the flags, where all this stuff. Like we kind of didn't plan accordingly to get as much done as we could in Jamestown before we had to go to our next spot, which we'll talk about that now. Was Williamsburg. Williamsburg, in my opinion, is the biggest, most disappointing, fraudulently run
shakedown
tourist trap shakedown of any place in the country.
Maybe worse than Disney World.
Disney World may
I think
be
it's
more
arguable.
expensive. Disney World may be more expensive, but you definitely get more out of Disney World than you do Williamsburg. I will have to say we got there a little late. Again, we went to Jamestown, we got lunch. I thought Williamsburg supposedly opened until 9 p.m., so I thought we had plenty of time. We had dinner reservations in Williamsburg for 6:45, so we kind of timed it based on that so that we'd be in Williamsburg looking at the tours, and get into dinner right away. So we get there around like 2. I had bought tickets online. Long story short, I gave the wrong email. I didn't have tickets, so I had to go to the ticket stand to get our tickets, which took forever because there was only one person working, and the lady just decided to have conversations with everybody at the tickets that were buying tickets and tell them to give her tips and stuff. And I'm like, lady, I gotta get my tickets. So I finally get up and get the tickets, and then this lady's like real rude. I explained to her like, hey, I have whatever. She's like, okay, that's fine. What's your name? And I said, Matt. And then she's like, okay. I'm like, well, it might be Matthew. I don't know if I have it Matt or Matthew. And she said, well, which is it, Matt or Matthew? You should always use your government name if when you do this so that you can always look them up. And I'm like, government name? Okay. I'm like, well, sorry. I don't know which it is. And my last name is very unique. I won't blast it on here, but definitely could have been just looked up by my last name, which I think I explained to her. I said, well, just look up my last name. I think there's probably only one. But she was really rude. And then she's like, do you have any questions? And I'm like, absolutely not. Let's get out of here. Get the tickets. We start walk. I get everyone there. We walk across this bridge that kind of has these plaques on this bridge that tell you, like, they kind of transition you. They're trying to like transition you back into the time period, right?
Mm-hmm. Every 50 feet you take over this bridge, you'll see a plink. So it'll say, okay, in 2000, you won't have an iPhone. And then you'll walk another 50 feet. It's now 1980. You never heard of the internet. And then keep walking. It's the 20s and whatever. So all the way back to 1774.
Right. So we we're walking there, and I'm just like, we had to pay for on top of everything. We had to pay $10 for parking. Jamestown was already a disappointment. I planned this whole thing. Mr. R and Mr. W are just like along for the ride, pretty much. I feel kind of bad about that. They knew what they were getting into. And I would say, that like tough, like, yeah, you signed up for this, but it just wasn't a good day.
Wasn't a good day.
Even if you weren't interested, even if you were interested in history, it wasn't a good day. But if you're not interested in history, but if you're not, like they were both tourist traps. It's like Anyway, so we're walking across this bridge. I'm like, oh my god! And so we're
furious too because we just watched the 10-minute film that was made in 1958.
That's the film.
That was John D. Rockefeller's.
So there's
baby.
a film. There's a film in in the Williamsburg Visitor Center, fresh off of getting told to use my government name when I buy tickets to Williamsburg. We go into this theater that is there's a movie, a film that they're talking that I believe ChatGPT told us to watch. I planned all this on ChatGPT. Again, I used John. I gave John the same treatment he gives the podcast. So I used ChatGPT to plan this, which is part of why we missed out. But anyway, I think ChatGPT even said, like, watch this movie. It's called, like, I don't know, the Patriot Revolution. I don't know.
Patriot Story.
Yeah, whatever. So we go into this theater. We happen to time it perfectly where it's starting right when we got there. So we're like, why not go in there? So we go in, starts up. Thank you, John D. Rockefeller Jr. for putting all this together, making this possible. It's like a whole John D. Rockefeller like show. But it's filmed in the 50s. It could have been filmed in the 40s. I mean, this is a trash production. And we start watching it, and I'm like, I looked it up. It was horrible. It was so bad. It was filmed partly in Williamsburg, which is kind of cool, but they could redo it. They charged $35 a person. I mean, they could certainly redo it and make it more pleasurable to watch.
Just more current.
It was hard. I mean, it was like a movie that you would watch in class at school in like 6th grade, but but you would still prefer to be not watching it. Like you would prefer, like, how you would get excited to watch certain things in class. Like if they showed this in class, you would be like, can we just learn? Can you just teach us instead of watch this movie?
Back up. Yeah.
And I had like, I was like getting bored, and it was like, they had freaking Thomas Jefferson looking like a bozo. They were showing the House of Burgesses and all this stuff. And kind of just like the lead up to the Revolutionary War in Virginia,
Right.
is kind of as far as we got. And I look up online, like I get on there to check the runtime, because I'm like, how long are we actually going to be watching this? We watched it. It was like a 25-minute long movie, I think. And I'm like, all right, it's only 25 minutes. How long have we been watching it? And when I checked my watch, we had been watching it for like 5 minutes, and it felt like 20 minutes. I mean, it was horrible.
We couldn't stand
Am I
it
right?
anymore.
Like,
Yeah,
so I
it
was just like, dude, I said, like, dude, this is 20 more minutes of this. We're going to lose Mr. R, Mr. W. Mr. W is probably going to fly home if we continue to watch this. So we get up. I'm like, let's just bail. So we all get up and we leave. And as we're leaving, there's a family in the visitor center, and they must have spent after the experience that we had, which we'll describe to you in the future. Now that I look back, you can really tell that these people had gone through it.
They'd gone through it, but we came out, they asked us, oh, you just watched that movie? They said, yeah, and we just said it just started, and they're like, oh, okay, but we watched 10 minutes of it. They said, oh, then you're leaving. So then we presume they went in, but we basically just told them it's a waste of your time. You really should just mosey on over that bridge.
Yeah, we kind of said, like, yeah, they kind of insinuated, they're like, oh, it's only been going on for 5 minutes. You already left. And we're like, yeah. They're like, oh, okay. I think they were on their way out. I think they were like, oh, maybe we'll catch this movie. Oh. And now I'm thinking, like, they put two and two together. Like, we just went through colonial Williamsburg. We've already been through the ringer, literally. And I don't think we can, do anymore.
So they came back to the 21st century. We're going into the 18th century, and
we kind of crossed paths, and it was like, it would be like watching, in the Vietnam War, like, or in any war, like when you're landing in the when like the new soldiers are landing in a war zone, and the soldiers who have already been in there are leaving the war zone and like crossing the path. Like you kind of feel that sense of like, we're the fresh ones, and we kind of have like hope in our eyes, and this family was like already went through it, and they're like, one more shot, like, how was that movie? And we're like we couldn't even watch 5 minutes of it. So probably should have taken a hint. We each probably could have taken a hint from each other. I think I kind of just lost that point, and we went over the bridge into the 18th century. We had already paid, so we had to do it. And we had dinner reservations, so what do you want?
So we take a 10-minute walk over we walk over the bridge, and then there's like a 10-minute path you got to walk to get to a full-scale modeled town, basically. That looks like it could be out of the 18th century. That's the whole shtick.
Partly, it is paved in asphalt, which I didn't agree with, but
paved in asphalt. There's people on bicycles and people rollerblading, and not. You saw.
So as soon as we walked in here, we're like, "What is this place?"
Yeah, the shine, the star, began to dim pretty quickly. To put a phrase, and so we're there, and we're not trying to get into everything. We kind of knew we were there later in the day, so we're not trying to get into every little thing or see every exhibition.
Yeah, we had two things to see. Really, John. Yeah, John had two things on his list.
We wanted to see the governor's mansion, which is a big building on the site, and we wanted to see the Capitol, the Virginia Capitol, which was where the House of Burgesses sat, and it's one of the longest continuous legislatures in North America. So we get there, and where we kind of pop out from this trail, it turns out to be right next to this governor's mansion. So we find out that the tour's starting within a few minutes. We see, a line kind of gathering outside. And so our $35 ticket, we paid, and Matt paid. We showed it, and we were able to get into the governor's mansion. And we are then with a bunch of these people, and we get a tour guide through the mansion, and the mansion was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, there were a bunch of guns. It was cool.
Bunch of guns.
There were a bunch of guns. The tour guide was pretty cool. She gave out similar vibes to Nadia.
She tried a little harder. She seemed like she was more.
She made some funny comment of like, yeah, the guns are here because like, yeah, if you come to see she made some comment like, well, when you come into a government, we were in the waiting room, and she's like, you know what happens when you come into a government office? You wait around, so this is why this room's here or something, which is funny.
Yeah, and she gave a whole background of all guns and daggers and swords on the walls, and she basically said like they're all functional, but again, we're back in 1774 here, and it's the governor's mansion, and the governor was a representative of the king himself. So everything was meant to be, like you're in the splendor and the presence of the king.
Of
of wealth and power and prestige.
Like
and
a
all
show, like to show like you don't mean squat, just to stay a subject.
Yeah, you are one of the king's underling.
Yeah. The cool thing about this building, as far as Williamsburg goes, because a lot of it was John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s, pet project, as we learned in that film. The first minute of that film, that it was built on the original foundation. So this building had been burned down, and it was rebuilt on the original foundation. So this is where it was, and even though it was rebuilt, I think the archaeologists were able to gather enough information, like pieces and whatever, to be able to make it look how they figured it looked back in the day.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They were able to, with the evidence they had to work with, they did have a mantelpiece that was original, and like from that, it was like a discolored piece.
Yeah, it was like a very small piece of the mantle, the fireplace, and they were able to just from that piece, they were able to recreate the design, and they kept the piece. They merged the piece in with the reconstructed piece, which was cool. So there was like a yellowed portion that you could tell was the original piece.
And we learned out also that if you just took a little toothpaste to it.
Yeah, this one of the guys at the tour was like, "Yeah, you take a little bit of that new purple toothpaste they're always talking about, and take that right out, that yellowing." I was like, "Yeah, okay."
So we're just cruising room to room, and we kind of just breezed through it.
It was cool. It was cool. There were some cool stories. There were some cool stories of the story. So the guy who lived there was like the governor. So he was a real bozo. He had he looked like a goofball.
Scottish,
and he ended up like just like hightailing it out of there, like on the eve of the revolution. Right?
Didn't tell anybody. Just left one morning. All of his servants, everyone was
all of his
there,
servants and everything.
Told nobody.
And that was kind of interesting. Then he tried coming back, I think, and they were like, "Nah, you're not coming back." I think that was part of the story. Mm-hmm. The whole time I couldn't figure out if our tour guide was pregnant or not, and I wasn't alone in thinking that. Another Mr. W, I believe, also was wondering because like how their outfits are, they kind of puff out around the area where you would be pregnant. So I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah,
but I didn't know if it was okay to ask her the question, so I did not.
Yeah, couldn't have got us kicked out, but then that could have been a blessing in disguise based on where we ended up. So anyway, we get through this house, and it's really nice. Like we let us out the back of the house.
It was cool.
There's these like gardens, and there's a whole like maze that you could walk through, which we did. It
was cool seeing the maze. So then we went over, and then they had it. So when we were, just flabbergastedly, before we took the tour of the governor's mansion, this woman who works there says, "Oh, we have we're replacing the kitchen expose with a brewery. So if you want to see the kitchen, make sure you see it today, and if you want to come back, make sure you see the brewery or whatever." And so we
definitely saw. Oh, and see the kitchen. We did. These people working there, I'm mad at. I didn't think people really tried that hard to get into character. Yeah, they had like the costumes on and this and that, but not much in the way of accents or any kind of like speaking. And like everywhere else we went, like we said earlier, Jamestown, like places people were like putting themselves in the time period to speak. These people weren't even like trying. They were kind of just like, "Oh yeah, I'm making this, I'm making that." And so we're in this kitchen, and this guy's got this whole lineup. The chef or the cook of the property has a whole lineup of like what they would have eaten back then. Some of it looked pretty good. Looked a little old, but looked good.
Yeah, so the chef there said that, or the cook, I guess, said that he made it was all made there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that already? It was all made there. There was a fire set in the background.
No, I didn't specify that it was all made on site, but yeah.
Yeah, so he said that they made it. We must have missed them making it, so they just had it all set out on the table. And yeah, the guy's like, we walk in and we're just like, the guy's like, yeah, it's all made. Like, okay. And then that was like it was like kind of like a weird like silence, and then John says like,
But
so did you explain? So there was a woman in there.
No.
So the chef was there, and then in walks a woman, and she's behaving very 21st century.
She's behind him. She's cleaning up. She's his like sous chef or whatever that 18th century equivalent was.
She's making like 21st century type quips about stuff, and it's like real weird. She's got tattoos all over her arms, wearing short sleeves with tattoos, and she's got a lip ring, and she's behaving like, not like how a woman in the 18th century would talk.
Well, maybe someone in the red light district.
But maybe I get. I mean, she was just kind of like joking around, and I hate it here. Like, I don't know. She was just
Matt
like
would say she was quiet quitting.
I think she's quiet quitting. Yes, I think
loudly.
she's like. I think she's like not even putting any effort in. She's hoping she gets fired from the job.
And the lack of effort comes in. So I see all this food on the table, right? I look at it, so, just starting conversation. Oh, what are we making here? And stuff.
Yeah, this woman just goes, stuff. And John's just like kind of taken aback, like, okay. Cool. So then the cook kind of explains everything that he's doing. And at that point, we got yelled at by this woman, and we're just like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore.
She's trying to be funny. She's like, oh, stuff. Oh, make it stuff. Like, that's the best effort she's putting forward. Like, I paid $35 to hear you yell the word stuff at me. And the guy did proceed to explain what it was, and it sounded pretty tasty, but she's like, stuff.
But then you remember at that one point, then there was like this dessert, and I noticed it there too. It looked like a hedgehog. Mm-hmm. It was like a dessert made out of like marzipan, I think. I think it was
almonds. Like slivered almonds.
Marzipan and like slivered almonds made like the spikes or whatever of like a hedgehog. And when I walked in, I'll be honest, I thought like, oh, is that a real hedgehog? But then like I kind of looked closer. I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely just made that or whatever. And then the woman with the lip ring started like going off about, oh, there was a woman in here earlier today. She was upset with the like she said like, I don't know, I'm not happy with this, talking about the hedgehog. And I was saying, do you really think that we have a hedgehog here? Do you really think that's a real hedgehog? I mean, look at it. It's obviously, she was getting like attitude about it. And I'm like, what? Okay. Why are you telling this in front of like the people who paid $35 to come see your stupid show? We pay your salary, lady.
So Matt and I left. We walked out. I was over it pretty quickly. Mr. R.
Poor got dunked on this whole trip. This whole trip to Williamsburg, I mean. He was not in his stride during Williamsburg.
He stays. He's a very inquisitive guy. He's very inquisitive. He likes to understand, hope, let things percolate and ask questions, good questions, like qualified questions, not like mine, rhetorical and arrogant. He'll ask questions that are like, yeah, so what is this? And how does that connect to this? And so, but we're not there for this. We walk out of the kitchen and he's left to his own devices. A few minutes go by. And then we're outside. He comes out and he's like,
he looks like he just got pantsed,
taken to school. Just
seems dejected. And we're like, what happened, man? What's going on?
And he says, yeah, I don't know. I'm just in there. I was just like asking this question. I see they had this like contraption that had like this rigging and this pot would then here, and it looked like, I think, what we would all describe in 21st century parlance as a rotisserie. And so that's what Mr. R asked. He said, so is this like a rotisserie? And they shouted back at him, we're not French, we're British. To which, knowing Mr. R, he would have been like,
okay,
excuse me? I don't know the English word for that, which I don't think they then told him.
And I think they did show him how it works, but again, just like rude. So I think he just walked out like confused, and we're just like, let's get out of here. So
we walked down the paved streets in the 18th century Williamsburg.
Yeah, there was some
guys
horses.
on rollerblades. A horse.
Guys on rollerblades. There was one guy riding driving a horse carriage. He had cornrows. I don't think that was a hairstyle from the 18th century, but I haven't confirmed that.
And he wasn't speaking in dialect.
I mean, and again, I don't care. This woman with the lip ring and the tattoos, you can do whatever you want, but like, don't work at Williamsburg, or when you're working, cover your sleeves and take out your lip ring. I mean, it's not that complicated. You know, these people pay $35 to feel like they're in the 18th century, and you're walking around with tattoos and a lip ring and a guy with cornrows. Like, dude, you can't make your hair into cornrow. Maybe cornrows work. I haven't looked that up. It's possible. Maybe
start somewhere, but it was late. It was getting late in the day. You know, the hours were
started
going
raining.
long. Started raining
off and on. So it started raining a little bit. So we walked in. So how they designated buildings. So there were a lot of buildings. Not all of them were open. So how they designated what buildings were open. There was a colonial flag, colonial American flag. Whatever.
Tickets. There were a bunch of ticket shops to sell you things. They were
they were selling. They were selling a bunch of stuff, shops and tickets and experiences, all the stuff. They're selling everything.
Blacksmith.
But there's like nobody out. Like there was nobody like in character out amongst the streets like doing. All like I thought it was gonna be like a theater.
Somebody getting up on a soapbox. Oh, gather! Oh, hear thee! Gather!
Yeah,
the Britisher,
exactly.
the Britisher. Read Lord Dunmore's proclamation declaring martial law. We must fight, push back. Like and like us, you know, you'd expect like a crowd to gather. And
Yeah.
We're just lollygagging through.
We're just walking.
Town
It's pretty
pavement.
much a town. It's like a town that's like a normal town, but just with old buildings that we paid $35 to get into. Some people were dressed funny, some people weren't. So anyway, so it started. They had like a little demonstration, more muskets demonstration that was interesting. The one thing that was pretty cool is that since there were horses going through the city, there was a lot of horse poop on the ground, and the soldiers were marching right towards a big pile of horse poop.
Doo-doo.
So we were the four of us were all like, "Oh man, are they going to step in it? Are they going to step in it?" Because they were like marching in line, and I think they were able to avoid it. Correct?
They did. And they didn't step. They didn't step sideways. They just stepped in between. I was thoroughly impressed.
While they were playing their little fife and the drums and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts raining, and we're like, "Let's get out of the rain." So we walk into a courthouse, and you know, because they had the flag, it was designated that it was open. So we walk in, and I make the comment like, yep, here to pay our taxes. And the lady in the front's like, you didn't pay your taxes in the courthouse. You paid it in City Hall. I'm like, okay, I was just kidding. Whatever. I was just trying to make a joke. So we get in here, and, you know, we obviously are not interested. The courthouse is empty. There's nothing in it. And there's this guy who's dressed like a colonial, whatever, talking normal again. He's like, yeah, so here's the courthouse. He's like, any questions? We're like, what? You didn't even say anything. I'm like, well, what's this? What's that? Like, you know, what are the, you know, he kind of started explaining it, and then he was like, this is where you, and then I asked the question, like, well, what kind of cases would be seen here? Like what kind of crimes? And he was saying like it was mostly like petty crimes, like, you know, owing money, and, you know, small claims court basically would be here. And Mr. R decided to ask the question or make the comment, or I don't know if it was a question or a comment. It's something that he claims he read in Jamestown. He said, I forget exactly how he worded it, John, but it was something like, I read somewhere, and he meant Jamestown, but he didn't say that. I read somewhere that slave owners who
killed their slaves would not be charged a felony.
Yeah, but that's what it was, right? Mm-hmm. And the guy got very offended by the question and started going off on Mr. R, saying like, you can't believe everything you read. It wasn't like that. It wasn't that bad, you know. And I think he got like, and I'm sure it happens to them all the time. You know, everyone like wants to bring up which is like, Mr. R, maybe as seasoned amateur history enthusiasts, you know, me, we kind of know not to really bring up the
Approach
S word
that.
in questions, because you're just inviting questions. Because like I think it probably happens a lot where people are like, weren't there slaves? It's a big topic of conversation,
Yeah,
especially
of
going into
course.
colonial Williamsburg. So I think he was like on defensive immediately when Mr. R was just kind of asking a question. Like I guess he was kind of getting at like, is that a crime? I guess that crime wouldn't have been tried here or is that a crime that would have been tried here because it wasn't considered a big deal back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
But the guy really didn't answer him, and we kind of left with our tail. But then other people came in, were like, good, and we got out of there.
Yeah. I asked him a question about common case law, and we ended up down a thing, and I was like, yeah, like we turn any more British, and he's like, yeah, well, they give us the British system, and it's like, well, we kind of got our independence, but it just puttered out, and I'm like, I want to leave.
Then again, you were talking about like present. Then you were like kind of talking present day politics a little bit, and then it's like, this is weird, and let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's not that much different than the Brit, and it's kind of like, all right, whatever. The rain had stopped, we got out of there. Another family came in, so we were good because there was literally nothing to see in this house. It was just, you would think they would have had maybe
people
a judge
sitting there or a clerk, even if he's doing like real work, like a judge's clerk, like maybe writing something on a paper, but doing like real work.
Welcome to the courthouse. We just saw this thing today. We just saw. Oh, you just missed it. So and so got charged with so and so, and we dealt with so and so.
And the whole thing could be set up. The two people at the front can be like, "Oh yeah, no, they're just beginning to deliberate. If you wait a few minutes out here, we'll let you in." And they do something on the every half hour, every hour. Everything should have been and he's like, "Nope, here you come on in. You got your little ticket. You got your little thing. Your little $35.
Thanks for the $35. We're giving you nothing for it." So we leave, and then we're moseying around, and the only other thing that we really wanted to see was the
Capitol building.
The Capitol building, which is where the House of Burgesses would have met, which is the first organized political assembly in the history of
North America. Oldest continuous, yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Don't know if the building was original or not. I assume it wasn't, but the reason why we can't tell you is because we walk. So the governor's mansion, which is where you kind of walk into the park at, is where we did the tour. That was kind of cool. And the Capitol building,
yeah,
that's what it is. Capitol building's on like the opposite end of this main street that's there. So, and we were kind of moseying around again. We didn't have our dinner reservation until 6:45. So we're trying to like kill time, kind of trying to find something that we'd be interested in. Stopped at some shops, looking at some stuff, and stopped in that stupid courthouse. And so then we're moseying down the street, and the flag that indicates that the Capitol building is open to tour is in the ground, and there's a woman sitting next to it in colonial whatever. And we get 10 feet away from the entrance, do you think?
Yep.
And as soon as we're 10 feet away, and the bell on the tower of the Capitol building rings to signify that it's 5 p.m. And as soon as it rings, the woman in colonial outfit lifts the flag out of the ground, goes in the gate, closes it, locks it, and says, "Have a good night, guys," and like walks away.
It's all smiling at us the whole time.
Yeah, just smiling like ha 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 ha. And like I couldn't believe what had just happened.
It was like the final straw.
I couldn't believe what had happened.
And mind you, we're dragging Mr. R around. Again, Matt said had a rough go with his knee. We're dragging him along.
Mr. W has zero interest in history. We're trying to... So me and John, as the amateur history enthusiast and podcast hosts, and, it's our passion to make history fun for people, are trying our best to do it. But I'll tell you what, Williamsburg wasn't helping. And when this happened, I just turned around. I was like, I can't believe that. I don't know what to do. I'm just disgusted. I was disgusted. I couldn't believe it. Now, granted, I'm a little upset. I'm upset at myself for not having looked it up, prepared, but also maybe we could have said something to this lady like, "Hey, can we come in for like 2 minutes? I just want to see it." But I was so upset and so like mad. I didn't even want to give her the satisfaction of like begging to give her
Let us
that
in.
power. You know what I mean? I didn't want to give her that power.
Well, the whole thing was just very tone deaf. I feel like the whole setup of Williamsburg, they just knew once they had your money, they had you, and they just didn't have to feel like, oh, sorry guys, we closed the dead at 5. I'm sorry, you guys meaning to come in here? And we were like, yeah, like, can we go in? Sorry, like, we have a strict 5 o'clock policy, which is have these
nonsense.
brochures. It didn't say it in the brochure. A bunch of these shops, so they have like the maps they give out are good for 2 weeks. They've got like 2 weeks of like programming, and then they come out with new maps, I guess, throughout the summer. And on the map, it just said Capitol, and it didn't say open from 10 to 5. Like, it didn't say the whole park's open till 9, but then these select places are only open.
But the park is open till 9, which it's not really even a park because it's open to just like the surrounding streets. I don't know. You could just walk in off the street, not pay $35 to get in, but then you couldn't get yelled at by the guy in the courthouse about asking about slavery. So I don't know if that's what you want to pay for.
So we're standing out here, and we go off to the side of the building. There's people funneling out. So it's not like I don't see the woman who closed the gate. She's not shooing people away. It's like there's still people in the building finishing up their tour, which looked self-guided. So they're coming out, and we're standing there and just like, tail between our legs. Just like, what are we going to do now? Like, it's 5 o'clock. We have an hour and 45 minutes to our reservations. Like, where are we going?
And there's like, there's literally nothing to do. Like, you can't even find anything to do here. And I later looked up, and this is my mistake again. I later looked up that it does say on the website that everything kind of closes at 5. Doesn't say it on the brochure. I don't know why they keep the place. They advertise it being open until 9 if it closes at 5, but whatever. So long story short, we were very upset. We ended up being able to, luckily, Mr. W got online and booked a earlier reservation for dinner, and we just went right in right after that complete letdown and had dinner. And we had dinner at King's Arms Tavern, which was... It was supposed to be fare from the 18th century. I think we all ordered waters or something, or somebody said, "I'll stick with water instead of getting a beer or whatever." And the waitress was like, "Oh, that's fancy, very fancy for you to have water. They'd be forcing you to drink beer back in the 18th century." And it was like, okay, like we were done. We weren't in the mood. We're just like, okay.
But we were there.
Mint julep, which I hate. I don't know why I even got that, and it had like the worst whiskey. They used the worst whatever. I'm not going to complain about it because the food was very good. It was a little. We were amped up.
We have to be honest with our fans here. We were amped up for this one particular menu item, which was
which one? Well, there was 2.
Peanut soup
as an appetizer, and our waitress actually said people come from. Now, this is another area where I didn't really know if she was being in character or not. She said people come from miles away to try our peanut soup, and I'm like, are you just like, is that like because miles away would have been a big
back
deal?
then, right?
Yeah, but I got the peanut soup, and it was very good. It was like a liquidy, toned down peanut butter
with chicken broth.
Yeah,
which
it was like peanut butter mixed with chicken. Yeah, or vegetable broth. I think it was vegetable broth, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I believe your first bite, you thought it was the most disgusting thing you ever had. You thought you bit into some ginger.
Yeah, I think I bit into some ginger, which I don't like, and I was like very upset. And then like after everything, but it ended up being very good. I loved it. I want to try to make it myself. I'd recommend anybody, if you ever see peanut soup on a menu, if you like peanut butter, you should get that. But the meal was fine. It was good. It was good food. I got prime rib. John got a steak. There was what did hen? I think the other 2 had hen.
Hen, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was fun. We got dessert. I had bread pudding. There was a dessert so like they had like an excerpt from like what you would assume would be like recipes or whatever, like of the fare to like describe it. And they said where they were from. So like some of the things were just kind of generic, like 1780 whatever, like recipe book or whatever. But there was one item that was from the chef of Thomas Jefferson, and that was a dessert, and it was snow eggs, which was basically like meringue. That looked good. Mr. R had that, and he said it was very good.
We got bread pudding. which was also
Did
quite nice.
Did you get bread pudding too?
I did.
Yeah, the bread pudding was good. So that was good. I mean, if it wasn't for that, Williamsburg would have been a 0 out of 10. King's Arms Tavern brought it to like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah. And the crazy thing
even if it was free to get in, I would have hated it. Let alone
I think
you had
it's
to pay
so
$35 a person.
baffling that no one's ever said. Everyone seems to have said they love it. Oh yeah, I took my family there. I love it. Your coworker was a big fan.
Yeah, I had a coworker. So I think the only thing that I can defend, and that's why we can't really comment on it, I'll never go back to find this out. Maybe if I have a mutual friend who I might trust their opinion about it, I would ask. If we got there earlier, maybe it would have been a little bit more active and a little bit more, like maybe if the weather was nicer, if we got there earlier in the day or maybe later in the season, like it is before Memorial Day still. So like I think the tickets are a little discounted. I think it's normally like $50 to get in.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So like maybe we just off season, but like it shouldn't be like I didn't do enough. I went into it assuming that it was more of a historical thing than just like kind of like some BS attraction tourist trap.
Yeah, they could have done a much
it was a
better
tough
job
job
of blending history with theater. Basically, is all you were asking for. I don't think that's too much to ask, but I think honestly, I do think like 40 or 50 years ago, I think more people would have gotten into it, and I do think the events of the past 5 years post COVID. I wouldn't be surprised if all that modern politics, I think, has spilled into it, and I just feel like people are a little
more toned down.
They're all on eggshells to like really kind of get it, like the guy in the courthouse. But so we left for dinner. We left dinner. We had to walk all the way back out. And let's just say once we got back to the 21st century, we were thrilled. We tried to walk back into the visitor center. That had closed.
We had to walk all the way around. Yeah, it was bad.
We were striking out every which way.
It was on our way out though. It was kind of fitting to see there was a guy using that a hoop and stick, pushing a hoop down the street and like no. I don't know if
by
he
himself.
lived, and then there were
solitary.
also people who apparently live in these some of these houses, and we didn't get that. Like they live there.
Families.
There are 80 families, and this guy's pushing the street. Like there was no. I mean, but that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of that. Like a lot of people do playing,
living their life, living their life,
living a colonial life. Yeah, and then we would have seen that. Like one guy doing it. Like that's what I kind of expected. But it was weird. It was like 8:00 at night. He was doing it with like in front of nobody. So I didn't really. I tried cheering him on, and he ignored me. So, but yeah, that was it for Williamsburg. I can't not recommend that enough, or I can't. What would you say? Like unrecommend, disrecommend?
I cannot recommend it anymore if I tried to.
No, I cannot not. You can't not recommend it.
That would be you can't recommend it.
Yeah. Don't go to Williamsburg. That's all I can say about that. Very disappointing. Waste of money. Waste of time, and I felt bad for the people that we drug along with us.
Sorry, Mr. R and Mr. W, you were great sports. And so that was our night. So we had 50, and from there we had a 50-minute drive back to our Airbnb because we were staying in the town of Quinton.
Which Tim Coyne, our great tour guide from Sherwood Forest, was not pleased with us staying there. It happened to be closer to Richmond, which was convenient for one of us for one trip, but that's okay. It was a lot of driving. So we drove back, and then, that was it for that day. And then, the last day, I don't know, am I missing anything?
I don't think anything else happened leaving Williamsburg. No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
It
was
so in the last day, the last leg of the historic triangle is the Battle of Yorktown, as I said. Battle of Yorktown is so there's actually two different attractions in Yorktown for this. There's a museum, the Yorktown Revolutionary War Museum, and then the Yorktown National Battlefield. Now, what we took the lesson that we learned from the Jamestown debacle, and we said, we're not going to that museum. We're just going to go to the national park. It'll be better. So we went to the national park. We drove there like a 55-minute drive in the morning. And it was a breath of fresh air. I got to be honest. And I think what we realized is the people in Yorktown know that this is the last leg that people do. It's the last chronologically. So Jamestown is set in like the 1610s, like it starts the 1610s. Williamsburg is the 1774, like right before the Revolution. Now Yorktown is about the
end, 1781.
Yeah, 1781, and also there's a little bit of Civil War stuff that happened there too. But so I think they know like this is the last leg, and they know that everyone's been beaten up. Again, similar to when we saw that family in Williamsburg, I think they're like, these guys have just been through it all. Let's just let's really
let's help them out.
Really take them in with open arms. So Yorktown's $15 a person to get in, which I was shocked that a national historical park was charging money. I've never seen that before. Valley Forge near us does not charge anything. Saratoga didn't charge anything. I couldn't believe that they charged money to get into that. But again, it's like more of a touristy trap than really historic. They're definitely like leaning into the fact that like
they could get away with it because of the other competition. Yeah, is also
exactly.
charging.
Yeah, so. But the guy was nice. I bought the tickets, and he's like, "There's 4 of you." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm going to give you the year-long pass for $45 instead of $60, and it'll get you guys all in, and it's a year-long pass. You can use it for just this park. It's called the Colonial National Park, so it included Jamestown with an E, and Yorktown, which would have been nice to know. But we did get that, so we got a little bit of a break, and it was like the most refreshing. He was nice. Asked him questions. He talked trash on Jamestown a little bit. He's like, yeah, like Jamestown without an E that we went to. He is kind of like, yeah. I asked if we could use this pass in Jamestown with an E. He said, yeah. He's like, but you can't use it in the other one. That's run by the state. Kind of gave a little like, you don't want to go. Like, we don't. I don't have anything. We don't have anything to do with that nonsense that's going on over there. So that felt good. It was very refreshing to have this guy be a little bit real with us for once. And again, I think they just know like everyone's been through the ringer, kind of similar. I guess maybe that's how the colonial soldiers felt in Yorktown, just through the ringer for the last.
That's
5
what
years.
they wanted to bring you through. That was the taking back of they wanted to convey.
Like it was going
really
through Jamestown,
feel? Yeah, they like make you just drudge you along.
Yeah.
Instead of drudging along the trenches, they're drudging you along from like one tourist trap
and then spit you out to Yorktown. Yeah.
Then there you are. So we had some time. So after we're talking to this guy, again, all these places had short films before them. So there was another film starting soon that would kind of just, again, give you the whole backstory of Yorktown, the days leading up to it, the aftermath, and all the troop movements and all that stuff, kind of just painting the picture before you went out to did the driving tour. So we had some time, and they had an on-site the museum, not a museum, like exhibition, just of certain things. And there was like this replica ship, which you could walk through, which was neat. They had other documentation and some letters. And so Matt and I were just walking along, and we turn and we come to this window, and it looks something like you could sleep in. I see, what is this? And so this looks like something you could put a bed in, maybe
a tent, perhaps
maybe a desk, maybe a stool, and it's a tent. And so we start to read the placard in front of it, and wouldn't you know, it said, "Here is George Washington's tent."
And we said to ourselves, "Didn't we see that in Philadelphia?"
In an amphitheater,
and we're told not to take pictures. And it was treated like it was right in front of us.
It was behind glass. It was it was a tent. I don't know if it was just one tent, but it wasn't.
And it was a real tent. Part of it was the real tent.
Part of it was a real tent. And then you kept walking a little bit, and then you walked in to what Matt was asking for when we were in Philadelphia, seeing Washington's tent there, was being able to walk through it or get some semblance of what it looks like from the inside.
Have it set up with all of his stuff. Mm-hmm. And we were actually inside the tent. I mean, you could see his desk and everything. It was definitely a full circle moment for us.
Uh-huh. And it was like encased, like you weren't standing in the tent, but like it was a cutout, and you had like glass above you, glass ceiling above you, and glass in front of you. And you'd see like George Washington, property of George Washington, like next to a cot, and like papers on a desk and a feather pen, a quilt pen, or whatever. And just like,
cool.
So this is
that was actually pretty cool. And that would have been really cool to see in the American. I mean, that's exactly what it should have been.
But it's
in the Museum of the American Revolution. Not to go back to that, but
all these places that have like sponsorships by like either private enterprise.
That's for profit.
Yeah,
trash.
For profit stuff is just crazy. It's off the wall.
Because they get you in there and they don't care.
It's a shame. So we get to the movie.
I think the one thing the federal government does better than the private sector, it seems like.
Maybe. So we get into the film, and I think the film was the best we saw.
Yeah.
The 3 too. It kind of did the best job of kind of summarizing the
how
events
we got
of
to Yorktown. Yeah.
Apparently it was
well
a siege.
produced and new.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know for our fan. I didn't know. It was a siege basically. So like Lord Cornwallis was basically pinned in Yorktown, and you had the French Navy in the Chesapeake, the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. They took out the British there. And so they hemmed in Cornwallis, and then Washington and Rochambeau gave the British forces up in New York the slip, kind of formed an attack up there and came down to Virginia. And then they kind of pinned him in, and Hamilton was really instrumental, and Lafayette was
Alexander Hamilton.
Yep, Alexander Hamilton, Marquis de Lafayette played in it. So all the heavy hitters, all the big characters.
George Washington was there, obviously. Yeah, and it was just kind of like Cornwallis was surrounded. It was cool. Yeah. Very cool place to be.
Mm-hmm. And so the video did a really good job of conveying what we were going to get ourselves into. So we get out, and then we saw a cannon. What was that cannon about? Whose cannon was that? It was the cannon that Lafayette hugged.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a cannon that he had fired, or was fired from his division, or whatever he was commanding.
No, he remembered seeing that he recognized it because a British cannon had dented it.
Right.
And he had recognized that he saw that happen, I guess. And when he came back for his tour of America in like the 1824 or whatever,
1824.
Yeah, he saw it and hugged it. He got very emotional over seeing it because he remembered that moment.
Yeah,
forgot about that. That was cool.
Yeah,
and then like you can do a self-guided tour. Now we don't have a great track record. John and I don't have a great track record, as the fans may remember from the Saratoga incident, of guided tours, self-guided car tours, vehicular tours to be exact. But we gave it another shot, and that's what. With my biggest complaint about Saratoga was it's such a big property, and they didn't have enough roads to be able to see everything. You had to park your car and get out at every single spot to see what you're looking at. That wasn't really the case here. I feel like they did a really good job. They built roads through the battlefield, and they had a self-guided tour on the phone. That they had an app that you could just click on all the things and you listen to it, and it explained it well. You could see everything from the car. You could it described like, well, you're here, to your right is this, to your left is this, right in front, and they're explaining it. And there's not, I mean, in reality, there's not really much to see in these battlefields. It's all just land now, but they're like kind of painting the picture, and you could do that from the cars. Mr. R had a bum knee again, so like we couldn't do a ton of walking, and like I think we were all kind of spent from the whole history thing anyway, so it was kind of a really nice way to see it, I think.
I will say one thing as an aside. I do think like these battlefields are ripe for like augmented reality. I think if you can get a pair of glasses and you show up with an augmented reality situation, it just overlays like,
dude, that'd be awesome.
If you look north, and like it has a compass in them, and it tells you which degree to look at, and then it's like you're looking at this degree on the compass on your glasses, like,
and they could have it rebuilt.
Just starts like appearing, characters just start coming out of the woodwork. That would That'd really cool. Do a lot, I think. Just thinking about that. But so we just cruised through. There.
It was a really nice drive too, through the woods. They had a really cool road that went like right through. It was a very nice drive,
overlooking the river, overlooking the York River. Yeah, it was very pretty.
We stopped at the Moore House, which is where Washington and I guess Cornwallis, did he show up? I forget. Like that's where they came to terms with the surrender at Yorktown. I think so, wasn't it?
He didn't show up for Washington. He claimed he was sick.
Yeah, I know, but I don't. So, but that's where I don't know if Cornwallis was there, but that's where the terms were written up. I think in Morehouse.
Though they were written up there, but they didn't necessarily That's not where the British surrendered.
No,
Was
they
it?
surrendered in Surrender Field that you saw.
Oh,
But I think after the fact, like after the surrender, the terms of the surrender, whatever, were agreed to at Morehouse, I think. Which we drove up there. It's like this nice little farmhouse. It's pretty cool. I park. We pull up to it, and I'm like, "You think we can go in there?" And John's like, "Oh yeah, definitely we can go in there." I said, "Okay." So I parked the car. We got out. Couldn't get in. There was no way we were getting into that house. So we just got back in the car and continued the drive. But it was fun.
yeah. Saw a nice monument, a really cool monument from the 1880s, the Yorktown Victory Monument. Really decorative. Huge. It's like 100 feet tall.
Oh yeah, right on the river. Lady Liberty's on the top.
Lady Liberty's up there, and there's like Yorktown today. It's a historical town as well, and it's modeled as such. And they had a pirates exhibition going on. The day we were.
That was
there.
pretty weird, but yeah.
Shooting off cannons. That was pretty neat.
We had a good lunch. I mean, the town of Yorktown was cool. There were babes in bikinis out on the beach.
Yeah, and
That was probably the most bachelor party we got.
And if I recall correctly, they had ice cream shops. Matt, didn't they have an ice cream shop there?
Well, yeah. So there's a shuttle that takes you from the national park to the downtown Yorktown, which worked out really well because parking wasn't great downtown. So I'd recommend anybody go down there. This was Mr. R's decision, which was great. I'm glad I would have never thought of it myself. He said, "Why don't we just take the trolley down and come back? We don't have to worry about parking." So we were waiting for the trolley, so we had time to kill in like this main street of Yorktown, which this area specifically wasn't necessarily historic. It was like a block or two up from the river beach that it gets more historical. But this area, it's got some shops and everything. And like I said, I had booked this. I planned this trip using ChatGPT, and the last thing it said was get some coffee or ice cream at Ben and Jerry's in town. And I'm like, oh, I love ice cream. Ben and Jerry's, it'd be interested to see what kind of flavors they have. I had to go to the bathroom, so I go in there just to use their bathroom. I wanted to look at their menu and just to see if they had any, interesting flavors that I haven't seen or tried before. And I got approached right away. It was a small place, and I felt obligated to order something. So I ordered a small dish of my favorite flavor that you can get everywhere, Chunky Monkey, a small dish, and I paid for it, and it was $8.79 for a little one scoop of this ice cream that you could get anywhere. I actually looked, and it was a pint of that was going for $2 for $10 at my local supermarket. So I was flabbergasted. I know you pay more, I get it, but you'd think they would have had flavors that I never saw before, or it would have been I don't know.
Spirit of 76 swirl.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was. I guess it's a chain. I didn't really know Ben and Jerry's had chain like Haagen-Dazs. It was like a Haagen-Dazs, but with Ben and Jerry's. I didn't know that existed. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a. I don't know. I figured it was going to be. I don't know.
$6 tops for a small cone in a cup. Yeah,
it wasn't even a cone. It was in a cup. I couldn't believe it, but I felt the need to complete the ChatGPT itinerary. And
when the machines take over, you'll be in their good graces, and they'll be like, "Oh, somebody who actually listens to us. Thank you."
But I mean, I couldn't really. Yorktown was. I mean, you're not going to drive all the way down there just for Yorktown.
No.
I mean, it's not. It's
and
not.
Williamsburg and Jamestown know that. They know that fact.
Yeah,
that's how they get you.
I think Yorktown was definitely the best. The Yorktown, I would recommend that to anybody to go see Yorktown. I think it's a pretty cool spot. It looks nothing like what it looks like in the movie Revolution, if anyone had seen that, which was filmed in England on cliffs. There's no cliffs. It's just kind of like a it rolls off. It's like a rolling
bumper slope.
Yeah. But yeah, good views. We had a good day. It was a nice drive. It was just something cool to see. But you're not going to just drive. You wouldn't want to drive 6 hours to see Yorktown.
Now, question:
if you're in the area,
could you pair Yorktown with just John Tyler's house, and the White House of the Confederacy. Would that get you down here 6 hours?
I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe.
Those are my three favorite things.
I'll say that if your question is, would I have had a better time if we didn't do Williamsburg and Jamestown? My answer is 100% yes. So
a follow-up question is, what if they replaced the historic triangle of Virginia with the Confederate White House and John Tyler's house?
And Yorktown, if that was the actual triangle?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really make a triangle, though, I don't think.
More like a
line.
Trapezoid.
It's cool. I mean, what stinks is like Jamestown, Williamsburg we were closer to Richmond, where we were staying. I feel like we could have seen a lot more in Richmond.
Richmond's more Civil War stuff.
We probably could have spent more time looking at seeing cooler stuff on that day than going to Jamestown and Williamsburg. I would never. And if I were to do it again, and we were going to stop out there, but we ended up not. We ended up bailing. Like, I would be interested to see how much better Jamestown with an E is than Jamestown with no E. But if I were to do it,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
If we were to do it again, I would. If I were to do it again, if I were to plan it the right way, I would do no Williamsburg. I would do Jamestown with an E, and those are probably the only changes I would make.
Did you know that Williamsburg has an international airport? Newport
Really?
News / Williamsburg International Airport. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do remember seeing that when we were talking about planning it. It's like, well, they could fly in there, but it was probably pretty tough to. Not many I don't know.
We also passed what would look like the biggest naval yard I'd ever seen, weapon stations I'd ever seen.
Yeah, that was cool.
Crazy. I'm looking at the map right now. It's massive. But yeah.
So then the end of, so that was it. I think it was fun. I mean, again, I'm glad we did it so the fans don't have to. If they certainly can go into it with more eyes wide open of getting a more real depiction of what to expect if you go there. Which
I think we could say. I think we
do not.
I think we can say that T-shirt we saw really was accurate. That Jamestown or Virginia is for history lovers. If you love history,
it's a cool place. It is. It's fun to be there. It's cool. It was cool. It was fun. Interesting being in the South. Like I said, the swamps around there were pretty cool to see. Something you don't see up here, and interesting. Just meeting the characters, Timmy and the guy hoeing the tobacco fields, and
quick shout out to Airbnb host too, who parked us in there for 3 nights.
Yeah,
did a great
job. Had a hot tub. He greeted us with a bottle of Martinelli's sparkling apple juice. Mm-hmm. Is apple cider? Apple juice?
Juice.
John stole 2 of them from him. Sorry for that.
If he listens to this, what are we gonna do?
It was a nice spot. It worked out. Everything worked out really well. And I had a good time. Won't get into specifics of the.
I mean, it was fun. Like anything we do, it's the banter that we have amongst ourselves makes the trip.
Yeah, it's the company or whatever they say. But Williamsburg sucked, and don't go there. I was so mad.
But the thing is, like there's another part of Williamsburg which is like a modern town, which looked way better. And
that's where William and Mary is, right?
We just went there for drinks and lunch. Yeah. Probably would have, yeah.
Yeah, well, I will say that too. Like, maybe that's a good point, John. If you do want to go to Williamsburg, if you do want to do it, like if you find yourself among the historic triangle of Virginia, I would recommend, because you can go downtown Williamsburg, William and Mary is, and it seemed like kind of a nice little quaint town, modern, but it was a nice little quaint town, and maybe go there, get some drinks, have some, get dinner there or lunch there or whatever, and you can just walk right into colonial Williamsburg. Like the streets are connected, so you don't need admission to get into the colonial Williamsburg section. The only thing that you really need tickets for are the tours. The Governor's Mansion tour, that was good, except when we got yelled at by the lady with the lip ring. And like the Capitol building that we got denied access to, like Jesus at the inn or Mary and Joseph at the inn on Christmas. It's kind of what I felt like. And so like you could just go, I assume like you could just go there and have fun. I mean, I don't think anyone's checking tickets. Maybe when it gets busy, I don't know. And I don't know if you really even need a ticket to get in. Definitely don't buy the ticket just to see the John D. Rockefeller movie. That's for sure.
You could see that without a ticket. I think he could have just walked in and walked into that movie theater.
That's true. Yeah, no one.
Anyway,
the only time anyone checked for our ticket was to get into the Governor's Mansion. So I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but take that for what it's worth.
Yep. So
you got anything else to leave them with, John?
No, guys, I was happy to get another one in for you. And like I said, we saw too much history in 3 days to not do another podcast. So,
is this going to be the last one, you think?
No. You got this thing for another 12 months, 11 months. We'll definitely come up with something. I was thinking, and this doesn't have to go on air or whatever, but I was thinking like maybe we could do, I don't know how long it would last, but we could do like this is like what it looked like, what was like the history and context of each state joining the union, and do like 2 or 3 a week, or like whenever we do a show, do like 3 of them.
Every state, all 50.
Yeah, well, we can start like at 14. Or we can just wrap up 13. Well, we could do like the context behind North Carolina. Like North Carolina didn't sign the Declaration, didn't sign the Constitution until 1780, whatever, 89.
Like we could do the 13 colonies first, and that'd be interesting.
And not just do like 1 a week, do like a handful, do like 4 a week or whatever.
Well, depending on the state. Like Texas would be a long one.
Texas could be its own one.
Then we could talk about their flag.
Can hint at their flag. Mm-hmm.
We could do each state's flag and national animal and song and all that stuff too. When we talk about each state, It's a good idea.
I think about the historical context of the times. I think we kind of
like
the 2 for 1. Like, well, Maine and like Missouri are going to be the same episode because that was the compromise. That was made. Yeah,
good idea.
I was just thinking about it.
Well, fans, let us know if that's what you want to do. If you think you'd be interested in that, shoot us a text or email at nailinghistorypod@gmail.com, or hit us up at Twitter at nailinghistory. And as always, hit that link in the description and send us a text. Just make sure that when you hit that link that you don't delete anything that auto-populates in the text message.
That hasn't changed, fans. There is some consistency in this world. There is some continuity. Don't delete the text. Don't delete the text.
Yeah.
We'll keep saying it. It's like Tim Coyne. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Like great Tim Coyne's. Don't touch it.
Lesson learned.
Leave it there.
All right, fans. We'll see you in the next one. Maybe, if there is going to be one.
Stay curious. You know it, as always. Later.
All right.
I got hairy legs.
Come on, man.
And we say bye-bye.